Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when and where you are. I see a few people are still joining in, so we're going to give them a couple of seconds here. Maybe a complete minute, maybe a complete minute. It's been a while since I have had the opportunity to do a webinar. I think the last time I did this was actually last year in December. And now we're going to be doing two this week. We've got this one going on here right now, which is our new a webinar for new users, right? So I'm assuming most of you are not familiar with Domotz. So in this, we'll give you an overview as people are still starting to chime in here. But then often we do town halls and stuff. So looks like it's starting to settle down. So let's go ahead and get started. Normally we have a slide in here that talks about GoToWebinar. I suspect over the last several years, most of you are familiar with how solutions like GoToWebinar work, whether you use Zoom or Teams or GoToWebinar. The thing I do want to point out is this is live, right? We're here talking to you. We'll be presenting on several topics. In fact, if I go to the next slide here, you'll see what we're going to do on our agenda. But I want to let you know that there's a chat session or a question section, and I want you to take advantage of that. We've got a team of people standing by to answer questions. And also, I invite my colleague, Giancarlo, to interrupt me at any time if there's a question that is relevant. So
thanks, JP.
Yeah, Giancarlo, why don't I have you introduce yourself since you're here and unmuted?
Oh, very good. Thanks, JP, for the intro. Yeah, I'm Giancarlo Fanelli. I'm the CTO of Domotz. I will help addressing any concern that you might have. So feel free to open the questions item in the GoToWebinar and put your question there. We will try to address them either online or at the end of the presentation with JP, or if they are in line with the presentation, we will answer the question directly online.
That's perfect, Giancarlo. And just so everybody knows, I'm JB Fowler. I'm our Chief Product Officer. So I work very closely with Giancarlo, and I work closely with our sales team to make sure that we're getting a really good understanding of what your needs are in the market and how we can apply that from a technology perspective. And we've made a lot of great changes in the last year. And frankly, I'm excited. It's because of the input that we've received from a lot of our customers like you. That being said, let's go over this agenda. I'm going to do probably about a 20 minute spiel on a lot of the things you hopefully expect from Domotz. Hopefully it'll spark some questions. We'll go over what is Domotz. I actually hid a lot of the company overview slides. I should have changed that on the agenda because frankly, what you need to know is we're here for you. But we'll talk about the key features and then we'll get into a demo. And that's where I really expect, Giancarlo and I to have some back and forth and showing how we can do some cool things. And then we'll address any questions and answers. I expect that this is probably going to be about a 45-minute session all in all, but if it goes longer, great, right? That means that we have good activity here. And then it's my understanding that we, and Giancarlo is going to be working on the back end side, we have a drawing that we're giving away some Amazon gift cards as well. So thank you for attending that, and let's get started here. So what is Domotz? Domotz really is about, in my mind, helping you as a service provider, you as an integrator, you as a person that is maybe in your IT department, right? Helping your company get awareness or be more efficient with how you're doing your jobs, what it is you're doing for your clients, what it is you're doing for your customers. Ultimately, the way we do that is by helping you be more operationally efficient, as well as being proactive. And this slide really embraces that. Right, the idea behind Domotz, and I've kind of broken it down into 4 things that I think you care about here, which is, one is how do we discover all of the assets, the network-based assets that are in your environment or in your system. The cool thing about Domotz, and you'll see this when we get into the demo if you haven't done this already with your environment, is how we classify devices, right? We'll look it up by a MAC address, but then we'll tell you the make, model, and type of those devices. To us, that awareness of what's going on is such a valuable part of your job as a service provider, knowing what's on your network, knowing what's on your clients' networks. This is a critical part of what we do. But then for you, being able to monitor those devices, monitor those systems, monitor the network infrastructure, and proactively alert to issues that are in those systems. We have an amazing way of not only discovering and classifying network devices, but then being able to interrogate those systems further. Showing you things like, how are all these devices we discovered mapped inside this network infrastructure? We'll show you topology mapping of that. And then being able to say, okay, if this system is down, or if there's a variable, right, a sensor within a system that is in a troubled state, being able to alert proactively on that, we think is really, really valuable. Now, a lot of times when a device gets into a troubled state, you really want to be able to manage that device. You may want to power cycle it. You may want to go in and reconfigure it, right? We do some really cool things. And when it comes to network infrastructure, we do things like backing up the network configuration files into the cloud so that you can then compare what's changed, being able to push those configurations back onto devices or even to new systems through things like templates, right? This is a way in which we make your job easier, and we help you lower your operational costs when it comes to dealing with situations that you have, right? If we can eliminate on-site support, if we can eliminate a truck roll, right, we're saving you money there, and we think that that just helps not only you, but also your customers with their experience. And lastly, one of the key things that we have with Domotz is easy deployment, right? I think when you guys have installed, if you've installed an agent already, you saw how simple it was to log into that system, add your username and password, and then the magic takes over, where it then goes in and starts classifying. Of course, there are some things, nuances with onboarding that we're gonna maybe talk about or that you may need help with, but we're there for you, right? And being able to help you troubleshoot those systems, being able to understand, you know, where you need to put credentials, how you need to add sensors to these systems are things that we feel we've made easy to do. So let's talk about this first part, which is asset management and documentation. First of all, you know, and I really look at this as more of a security process type of tool, right? Being able to understand, you know, if you're dealing with things like NIST or CMMC or ISO, SOC 2 compliance, right? If you're dealing with the CIS controls that are out there, right? One of the very first things that you will do or need to do inside of any of those processes is understand what's on the network, right? What's on these systems and how are these systems behaving? Domotz does that amazing job, and it does it in real time, of discovering devices, classifying those devices, helping you know which ports those devices are connected to, and ultimately building out a map for that. CIS control number one, which is the basis of all of these different security processes that you may be working with, is about understanding what's on your network, and not just the endpoints that you may be managing as a service provider. And when I say endpoints, the PCs and the laptops or the servers, but it's also about the network infrastructure. What is that doing? What are the devices that are connected to the network, whether it's unified communication systems, voice over IP, security systems, right? It could be access control systems or security cameras. What are those devices doing on your network, even if they're on a segregated VLAN, right? Or a segregated subnet? What's going on in these networks? And Domotz gives you that visibility and awareness, and we help you document that stuff even better. And by the way, when it comes to documentation, we know that you often work with tools, whether it's things like IT Glue or Hoodoo or others, where they have a documentation tool. Domotz can automatically integrate all of our data into those systems, and we can talk about that in some of our help guides and some of the other videos that we've put out there. Of course, many of you are probably thinking of Domotz as a network management tool, right? A diagnostic tool for you. What's going on in that network? How do I make sure that the network is properly running all the time? And Domotz has created a user interface that's ultimately built around the network, right? How do we monitor the routers, the firewalls, the managed switches, the wireless access points? How do we make sure that they're configured properly? How do we make sure that we don't have systems that are in a troubled state? One of the things that Domotz does in its proactive monitoring of all the devices on the network is that we actively do latency testing to each and every device that's on that network. Why do we do that? Well, we're looking for behavioral changes in the network that you should consider getting alerts on, right? If you see a system that all of a sudden starts to have higher and higher latency, it's probably telling you that something has changed on the network. It's telling you that something in the network infrastructure may have been configured incorrectly. And we have all the tools in place to be able to help you diagnose some of that. Ultimately, it's about making sure that you know that something is wrong in that network before you get that phone call from your customer. We want you to get out of that break fix mode of getting, you know, a phone call from your customer and then all of a sudden having to scramble to fix their problem. And we want you to proactively monitor that system through Domotz so that you can better understand what's going on and fix the problem before it becomes a real issue. The other thing, and I've mentioned this already when it comes to things like CIS controls, NIST framework, CMMC, et cetera, but one of the big things that Domotz does for you is provide better security, a security process, right? Security compliance, right? Into these systems that you're deploying, right? Of course, we also make sure that Domotz itself is extremely secure because we know that we are now a tool that's being introduced into your tool stack. And the last thing that we want to do is provide any more vulnerabilities. Domotz has a 26-page white paper that's out on our website for you to see that talks about our security processes. It talks about how we have been able to implement SOC 2 as part of our security process. We are a SOC 2 Type 2 compliant company, and we make sure that we are providing a tool for you that is extremely secure. Now, when it comes to awareness of what's on the systems, there is a 56-page document that's out on our website that talks about the CIS controls, and I would encourage all of you to take a look at that. The beauty of what Domotz does is out of the 18 CIS controls that are out there, Domotz helps you with handling 6 of these 18 controls. Many of those other controls are built around, you know, software installations, processes that you're putting in place. But when it comes to classifying devices on the network, we do that. When it comes to understanding ports that are open on each of the devices, right? The hardware that's in your environment and how you handle those and monitoring those, we do that. When it comes to dealing with the network itself, monitoring and managing the network, of course, we're there to help you there. And then the other thing that we really help with significantly is the topology mapping of the network and understanding how all of the systems are connected. So these are critical parts that Domotz provides to you, and we really help you better understand all of these things. Now, one of the things that we're going to talk about is how Domotz becomes a great tool for you. But what I want to understand before we do this is I want to put up this poll here, right? We want to get an understanding from those of you on the network. Let's see if this comes up here. Yeah. So we want to understand what type of problems are you trying to solve, right? You guys came to Domotz for a reason. And what we want to do is understand a little bit more about why, right? Why did you come here? Because when it comes to the demo, right, when Giancarlo and I start chatting, I want to be able to address some of the concerns that you have. I'm seeing some feedback come from different people here. It's not necessarily about increasing efficiency or productivity, but I'm seeing some results that relate more towards security compliance, right? Proactive monitoring, which is all great, right? And in some sense, some of those things go together. So this is great. This is great. We're getting good feedback on this. Let me just leave it up here for another 20 seconds or so while these results are coming in. Yeah, good. I'm seeing a heavy leaning towards asset discovery and awareness, as well as proactive monitoring of the systems that are out there. Two things which I fully appreciate. And actually, what's interesting about this, let me go ahead and close this poll. So I see that. From a results perspective, you know, I'll just share it while it's up here so you guys can see what it is. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about proactive monitoring of the systems. We'll talk about asset discovery as well, right? And have that. We'll show some of that information in here. And it's funny because I view this as a really great lead in into this slide here, which is, and this was a generic slide that I threw in here because I think it's important for you as a service provider. And this really depends on whether you're coming from this being a tool directly for you, or whether you're trying to figure out how can you benefit from a tool like this and think about how it could possibly generate revenue for you. Okay, let's first talk about the operational efficiency side of this, right? I believe that Domotz fundamentally is meant to be a tool for you, whether you are an IT department, okay, whether you are a service provider, whether you're an integrator, it doesn't really matter. Maybe you're dealing with security systems. Ultimately, what you should be thinking about Domotz as is a way in which you can proactively monitor the health of the systems that you have deployed, okay, whether that is the network infrastructure or whether it's an individual system that's on that network, okay? The idea is that if a device is in a troubled state and you see that from one of your customers or one of your remote sites, you should be getting an alert on that system. You should have configured it for an alert, and then you should be able to log into that system and do a couple different things. And we'll show you this in the demo, but whether it is power cycling a device or logging into that device and reconfiguring it, whatever it may be, the goal should be to help you eliminate an on-site visit, eliminate a truck roll. If we do that, we will make you more efficient because you can react faster to the problem. You can hopefully react before the customer even knew there was an issue. But then the other thing is that if we can eliminate that truck roll, right? Having your team go out on site, right? Which is in some sense wasted time while they're driving, but also then just to find out that all they had to do was reboot the thing, right? That is just a bunch of time that we can save you there. That being said, while we do look at this as a great tool for operational efficiency, there's many people that are trying to figure out, how can I extend my services for the clients that I have today? How can I generate revenues based off of tools, right? Domotz is going to help you do two different things. One is it's going to help save you on the cost of operations, right? That's labor, right? If we can help save you there, that's great, and that's helping with operational efficiency. But if you can find a way in which you can add value to boost revenues to your clients, right? Talking about security awareness, talking about what happens when a new device shows up on the network that maybe isn't supposed to be there, right? Helping your customer better understand how you as a service provider can proactively know what's happening, also being able to react faster to systems, giving you visibility over the entire world that you monitor, right? Whether it's your customers' multiple sites or it's just all of your sites, right? These are all things that you can do that add value. Your customers are very willing to pay for that. So you have to consider how you can message in this tool that comes to you through Domotz, right? These features that come to you through Domotz, right? That fits your value proposition to your clients. But I absolutely am very willing to talk to you guys about how these services can add more value and help you generate even more revenue, right? Which makes a tool like Domotz even that much more valuable. One of the ways in which and this is just an example, one of the ways in which many of our service providers will leverage Domotz as well is to do what we call an initial scan of the system, right? Prospecting, right? If you have a conversation with a new potential client and you need to get an understanding of what is on their network and what they're doing, what they think they're monitoring, they may tell you that they only have, 20 PCs that are out there, right? Who knows, right? Just depending on the size of the client. But in reality, when you start to scan that network and you start to understand, well, not only is this network segmented, right? There are security systems, there's access control systems, there are printers, right? There are the network switches themselves, right? The number of WAPs that are out there. You may find that you have people's iPhones connected to the data LAN instead of a guest network, right? You have all of these things that you start to bring awareness to your customer, that now, instead of having a conversation about how do I create this quote and am I sure of this quote for this customer, now you can have real data that says, I put this Domotz agent, this probe, right, into your system. Here's the things that it found, and let's get a better understanding of how these systems are working and how they're behaving, what it's mapped like. This is a great tool to help you when it comes to, again, better understanding what's going on. So that way you can go in with a lot more knowledge. Okay. Talked a lot about that, and I love it. Such a thing that I'm passionate about, and I'm very willing to have more discussions. Let's get into some of the key features of Domotz, right? Things that I think, especially based on some of this poll, right, what you're going to see that may help you better understand how we can help here. Inventory, right? One of the first things we talked about is understanding, how Domotz, discovers all the devices. In the demo, you'll see this in real time. A couple things you'll note on the inventory pages that we have. First of all, you can sort your systems by your organizations, right? These could be key customers that may have multiple sites. You may have a doctor's office that has 3 different offices that you monitor. You may have a franchise where you're monitoring 10, 15 different stores for a client in your area. You can sort Domotz by that. Here we're sorted by what we call sites. Each one of these dots that are on the screen here, essentially, whether it's 3 dots or 10 dots, right, represents the number of agents, right, network probes. It could be sites that you have within a customer. You can see that holistically. Domotz is a multi-tenant platform. What it allows us to do, especially as a cloud-based platform, is give you a dashboard that can see across all your customers at one time and filter by those customers, bringing awareness to what's going on at a customer level, where their systems are actually online or offline, or whether there are issues within the network. And we'll talk more about that. You can, of course, see your inventory by all your devices as well. So if you want to look across your, maybe you have, well, on this slide here, right, I've got 17 sites. Probably within those 17 sites, I have hundreds of devices. If I want to sort and filter by all of my Cisco systems or all my Ubiquiti systems, or maybe a particular device, I want to see who has iPhones connected to their network, I can do that. It's a very, very powerful tool, and we'll show that. Another thing that you can do, which we think is so very, very powerful within Domotz, is you can create your own custom dashboards. If you want to see very specific things within systems, if you want to look at virtual machines and how what we call sensors, or how the systems are set up and configured by either logical disk information or operating systems as shown on this slide. If you want to look at printers and see the ink levels specific to, cyan cartridges or yellow, you can do that. These dashboards are extremely customizable. In fact, if you want to sort them by customer type, or you want to sort them by my very important customers and specific devices within that, you can do that. Right, these dashboards are very, very powerful, and we'll show you some of that. This network topology, right, CIS control number 12, right, understanding how the network is connected, understanding how each device physically ties into that network infrastructure is something that we'll show within our demo as well. And I think that this is one of the more powerful tools within Domotz. Oh, I mentioned this before, but I think it's an important part, especially for service providers or integrators that are dealing with multiple clients out there. The multi-tenancy aspect of Domotz and being able to look at each one of your customers in a common dashboard, we think is very, very powerful. And we'll touch on this more. But for me, if you deploy specific types of systems and you want to be able to check on those systems, you can do that very easily through this platform, regardless of the customer sites. So you're not dropping in and out of different systems. We're going to demonstrate remote access. When it comes to proactively managing your systems that you have deployed, for us, this is a key way in which you can connect. We'll show you how we can make direct connections into a device. And we'll show you how you can use things like VPN on demand, how you can turn the Domotz agent, right, that network probe that is sitting on that network, into a VPN host. And then you can use your favorite VPN client software, such as OpenVPN, to log into that, putting your laptop or your system, the system you're working on, directly into that environment. The other thing that we'll talk about is being able to remotely power cycle. You'll see how we can discover managed switches, see that they are PoE enabled, and how you can power cycle PoE ports for things like touchscreens, voice over IP phones, security cameras, whatever it may be. But we also we'll look at PDUs, or what's called power distribution units. With a power distribution unit, we can remotely access those systems and then associate devices on the network to a PDU, to an outlet. Whether you're dealing with a Raritan PDU that's tied to specific servers in a rack, or you're dealing with systems like SurgeX or Middle Atlantic, where systems may be tied to AV equipment on that network. We can also power cycle those things remotely. And lastly, this is something that we've recently added within the last year. To me, this is the power that makes Domotz even more unique for you as a service provider or an integrator. Being able to write custom drivers, custom integrations for equipment that's on the network using things like simple JavaScript, right? And Giancarlo will be able to speak to how he did this. He's monitoring a Tesla wall station. He created this driver within about 30 minutes, and now you can see all the data that's associated with this Tesla wall charging station, right? If this is, I'm sure a lot of you on this call may have, a Tesla system. I'm sure that Giancarlo would be very willing to give out his driver so you can use that to monitor your home system. But this is just an example of how powerful these tools are, right? If I can access any system, right? Maybe it's a touchscreen on a wall in a conference room, being able to look at the CPU, being able to look at the bandwidth, being able to look at memory consumption to see if we need to power cycle it or alert on that. This is an amazingly powerful tool that I think is going to make you even more valuable to your clients and your customers. So we're super excited about this, and we have a lot more features and capabilities coming forward on this, but we'll talk some of this in the demo too. Okay, Giancarlo, it's time. You have to go off mute now so you can talk to me.
Thanks, JP. Very nice presentation and introduction about Domotz. I really like that custom driver about Tesla wall charge.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that too. I should actually see whether your car is charging now or not.
Yeah, it's not, it's up. But to be fair, yeah, it took me like 20 minutes, but I asked ChatGPT to help me writing part of the code. So it's it's not.
I find that fascinating, Giancarlo. The fact that you can take advantage of things like ChatGPT now to be able to easily frame up, right, that custom driver is awesome. So let's Giancarlo, let me ask you this before I go into some of the demos and talk about some of the things that we discussed. Was there anything that you feel we should address, or were there any questions that came up during that time that we should answer here?
Yes. So one thing I want to make sure we clarify is how Domotz is able to scan multiple VLANs and how to like one of the use cases is some system integrator that might have one network, which is the one that they care, which is usually isolated by the cloud, and how they really have a device, including the Domotz agent, sitting on one side on the networks that they want to scan, and on the other side on a 5G modem to connect to the cloud.
Sure. Yeah, that's actually it's a very good question. There's a couple of different ways, of course, we can frame that up. And I didn't go into details in this webinar about how I can just show it here, right? The types of agents, right, or network probes that can be put into a Domotz environment. But much of that depends on this, right, and what you're using. But assuming, and we do have some white papers about this, Giancarlo, right, around the Domotz box, right, and how you can take advantage of the USB port that's on the back of that to tie to a 5G or LTE modem, right, that's out there, and use the LAN port on the agent or the network probe to scan the local area network, but then have that communicate with the cloud. The benefit, of course, would be for something like a commercial integrator who may be working on a a local area network or a segmented LAN where their customer didn't want to give them full access to a system, but they still needed to be able to remotely monitor on that LAN. So there are ways in which you can do that. My suggestion, and Giancarlo, you tell me if you agree or disagree, but my suggestion would be for anybody who's interested in that to contact our support team, and we can help you configure that system. And we have white papers on that as well.
Yes, I completely agree with you, JB, on that part.
Good, good. I appreciate that question. It's a great question. So let me, and Giancarlo, if you're okay with this, let me just go briefly over this live demo here. Yep. Couple things you guys will notice in Domotz. When you first log into the system, you're probably going to just see one dot, which is an agent that you have activated on this map. We call this our Sites Explorer page. You can think of this as a NOC screen, right? A Network Operations Center type of view. The idea behind this, and I'll just focus in on this IoT lab here, right? When I click on the IoT lab, right, I can go into this system. Oh, by the way, I should point out, right, what's the different colors, right? The idea behind these different colors is meant to be very stoplight centric, right? When we have a site that is offline, which I'm in a demo setup, so we have quite a few that are offline here. But when we have things like this, an offline site will be red, meaning that it's no longer communicating with the cloud. In the case that it's green, that means everything's running normal. But when we see yellow, right, we see systems that have important devices that are offline. And that's something that you should start to consider, right? If we dive into this IoT lab here, you'll see that we have a couple of devices that are offline. Okay, in all fairness, right, just so everybody knows, this is my house here. So that's why you're gonna see a lot of consumer-based devices in this. But when you activate an agent, the very first thing that the Domotz agent tries to do is to start scanning these networks. It starts looking for all the devices that are in the network, and then it does its best to classify these devices by make, model, and type. In fact, if I go into, let's just see what's on, let's see what's on this driveway camera here. One of the things we will do is we start to look for its MAC address, right, which is simple. We start to classify all that information, right, model, make, right, type of device as best as we can. We will look at layer 3, right, so we'll come back with the IP address information. The other thing that we start to do is we start to look at all the application protocols that are being broadcasted. So layer 4 through, layer 6, as we start to look at devices even further, right? We look for things like bonjour names being broadcast, MDNS entries being broadcast, UPnP if it's asking for that, zero comp, right? There's a host of different protocols, and based on what that system is doing is what we will start to showcase inside our UI. Next thing that we're going to do when we discover a device, we're actually going to start to look for which ports on that device are available for connectivity. We look at it from a management perspective. How am I going to find a way in which I can manage these devices more effectively? In fact, let's go to, well, let's do this. Let's just go and show you this network topology, right? By us interrogating the systems even further, right? By discovering which ports are open on particular systems, we can start to look at more details. If we have things like SNMP that we discover on a system, and if you give it the SNMP credentials, whether that's version 1, version 2, version 3, right, we have the ability to interrogate those systems even further. So if there are certain systems, whether it is PCs, right, running Windows, or Linux-based machines or virtual machines, or even devices where we have deeper integrations with. If there are things like SSH credentials or HTTP credentials that you can give Domotz for those devices, it allows us to interrogate these systems even further. And when I look at this managed switch, for instance, we can see the specific devices that are connected to these ports. We can see these are PoE-based devices. This is for a video distribution system. but we can see that they're consuming power. And then we can even, and this might not be, I'm sure my son's using his Xbox. Let's see if they're, yeah. So we can see how much video or bandwidth is being pushed over these ports by this particular system, right? On average, it's probably pretty low, but you can see, right, we have points at which we get up to, 10, 20 megabits per second, right? So this is just a great example of how these systems, or how Domotz interrogates these systems and can bring out more data about these devices. While I'm on this managed switch, let's talk about configuration management. In fact, let me blow this up a little bit more so you can see it better. One of the things that Domotz will do, and I haven't tried to view this in a while, but we will look at the configuration files of a managed switch or a firewall. We'll pull that information off and store it into the Domotz cloud, right, into your account. Then what we do is once every 6 hours, we will pull that device to see if there has been information that has changed in that configuration file. If we see that it has changed, we will download that new file for you, and we will give you the ability to see, well, we'll really give you the ability to 2 or 3 different things here. One is to see what has changed, just like I'm showing you here. Another thing you have the ability to do is restore a backup, right? So you can push that old configuration back onto the system if you need to, okay? Another thing that we will do is give you the ability to alert when a configuration file has changed. We talked about that proactive management. For us, if you weren't expecting a change to happen on a configuration file, you should be getting an alert on that to say, hey, this system has changed. What do you want to do with that? The other thing, which is really important, and I'm sure you've all done this, right, where you have gone out onto a job site, you've made changes to the running configuration file within a switch, and then you've gone home, right? The problem is that if you only made changes to the running config and you didn't change or save that as a startup config, then you're going to have a problem when you have a power outage, right? The old configuration will revert. What Domotz will do is send you an alert when there's a misalignment between the startup config and the running config. So just another powerful tool to help you better understand what's going on inside your system. Let's see. We talk about proactively monitoring systems. Let's take a look at a particular device on the network. I'm going to show you a different way of kind of going in and finding a system. I'm going to this inventory dashboard, as we call it. When we first log in here, we're sorting it by sites, but if you have organizations that you have grouped your devices by, you can certainly look at it that way as well. Or you can come into your devices inventory. So as I mentioned before, this is a page which now looks across all the devices across all my clients, okay, or my sites that I'm monitoring, or even sites that I'm sharing, okay, or have collaboration with. If I do a search for Geist, okay, Geist is a temperature humidity sensor. We have it across a couple different networks, but I'll just go back to this IoT lab since I'm familiar with that. What we can do is view the details of this particular device. This is a network-based temperature humidity sensor. I like to use it because it leverages SNMP, it just helps us demonstrate the power of what SNMP and Domotz can do here. A couple things you'll note when you click on a device that has SNMP enabled. First of all, we're going to scan that device to see if there are pre-configured sensors that we can apply to this, and you can see that we have that. We also can come in and manually add sensors to that system as well. And you know what, I'm going to again blow this up, so let me just go into this device here. We'll have it come on the larger page so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see this. So here I've pre-configured some sensors already, okay? And I've just manually added that, but let me show you if you wanted to come in here and manually add a sensor for a particular device. Note that Domotz has thousands of MIBs already in the database that we look across, but if I want to search for something like temperature, right, we'll pull up all the OIDs or the sensors that are associated with that particular device, and then you can add that easily. Now I already have that, so let me just show you how in the temperature, right? We've grabbed that. If I go out a month, you can see the history of this system. And this is actually kind of funny. You guys will, I'm a little irritated about this, but I'll just point this out. You notice this massive temperature drop that happened here? So this system is down in the basement. I walked downstairs this morning to find out that my son left the door, or excuse me, the window open in a room. And so it was extremely cold in our house, and it dropped the temperature significantly in this room, right? Why he did that when it was like 26 degrees out, I don't know, but he left it open all night. So this is just an example of how we can see that. What you should
You
know.
really live in a cold place, JP.
I know,
Really.
I know. Salt Lake just, it's been cold this year. So tracking all of this data is extremely valuable, but what's more powerful is when you want to come in and set an alert on this. So if I want to come in here and set up an SNMP sensor that says when the temperature is above 105 degrees, send me an alert, right? Push a notification into my ticketing system, right? Set a shared alert, right? Maybe push a webhook into an automation system. This is some of the power that Domotz has with these systems. The last thing that I want to show you here is this monitoring dashboards. We touched on this. There's lots of different things and way in which you can customize these dashboards, right? Here I just have a dashboard called Cisco. I've added a system, like of all the systems that I have, I happen to add, you know, the Cisco devices at the time. In our office, we look at Cisco phones, right, and who's tied to this. You can even start to add information about firmware version, right? Why is this so powerful? Well, if you have a particular device, right, where you care what firmware version it's on, right, for patch management purposes, or you need to like associate, okay, how many jobs do I need to go out and patch devices on? This is a great way to look at this tool here, right? So you can see what are the next things that you need to attack, right? You can prioritize this by customer. You can prioritize this by device or level of importance. So this is just yet another way in which you can utilize these tools in such a powerful manner. So this dashboard is meant for you to help customize and help your team be that much more efficient. Giancarlo, I think it's worthwhile that we do talk a little bit about this custom integration.
Yeah, before looking in the custom integration, still staying on the list of devices and something. Oh, I see that you are currently using the web app. Because one of the questions was, I have tons of digital signature or devices already named in my asset management tool, whatever it is, and I want to use Excel to import the naming, which has some sort of convention. Yeah, we mentioned through the chat that yes, that's a possibility. You can import an Excel sheet.
Yes.
With your own naming and so on. So
that's a very good point, Giancarlo. And when you're using the desktop application, whether you're on a Mac or a Windows machine, and you're right, I'm using the web browser because I like to show the connectivity into these systems through that. But when you're using the desktop app, you absolutely can go to your device list, right, within a given site. So again, go to IoT Lab here. And when you're on this devices list, you actually can download an Excel file of all of these devices that are actually in your system. You'll get information about the state that it's in. You can actually go in and inside that Excel file, modify the names. You can add notes, right? There are certain fields that you can modify, and then you can re-import that information back into the Domotz environment. So it's a great tool.
I completely agree. No, and that's basically what he was looking for. No, he has a huge repository, probably in Excel, with already populated names and MAC address, so he can use a VLOOKUP and put the names there and then import back in Domotz. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's go ahead with the custom driver. That's a fun conversation.
I love the custom driver, right? The custom driver has been an awesome tool that we've added that I think people can definitely get some value out of. You know, just to show you the types of power, and these are different environments, but let me show you this like Zoom services driver, right? Written in JavaScript, very simple. You can see it's actually not very long, okay? What we did here, right, just to show you the power of this, right? We created a driver that goes out and interrogates the Zoom services that are running, right? It interrogates their services to make sure they're operational and functional. You can imagine that I may want to interrogate something on my network. I may want to interrogate a server that is running or hosting a website. Maybe I want to check the validity of the certifications, right? The certs that are on that server, right? You can create drivers. In fact, we already have drivers for many of these things which do this, okay? Let's go look at what this Zoom services are doing. And I just randomly added, right, in my IoT lab, I am checking Google DNS. It's one of the devices that I've put out there, okay? The reason I do that is because I often want to look at the latency from the point of view of my agent that's sitting on the network out to Google, right? Just to make sure it's working. And we classify round trip delays and we can look at that. And by the way, we can set alerts on that, okay? But in this case of the custom driver, what we have done is we've added to see, you know, on this particular system, are Zoom services running? Are they operational, right? This driver continuously polls, right, once every 5 minutes to see that the system is up and running. And then based on these variables that our team entered here, we can see that things are either operational or not. One thing that we can do as well is, let's just say live streaming went away, or we wanted to know when it went away, we can actually set up an alert on this system to say, hey, this has changed. I want to get notified about this so that I can then take action, right? Again, great way to better understand what's going on in your system. Giancarlo, I think I have access to your house, which apparently is a winery.
It is a winery, yes.
Yeah, well, it's an Italian house, so
it's an Italian house with a lot of wine inside. Yeah.
So if I look at this wall station that you have, right, this is the driver that you went off and created, and you said you use ChatGPT. Again, same type of thing, right? If I wanted to see that the temperature, right, went above a certain threshold or below a certain threshold, I could set an alert on that. Giancarlo, is there any...
exactly the use case I was looking at that morning, because we had some issue with temperature as well, and so I was looking to monitor the temperature of the wall mount, absolutely, as well as just having a historical list of how many times per year I charge and so on. So it's a plus, but the alerting on the temperature was the critical part.
Yeah, you know, I want to go back, right? I'm not saying that, you know, all service providers need to start monitoring Tesla charging stations, but what I do want you guys to recognize with this is how powerful this tool is, right? You can take a more consumer-based product, right, and you can put alerts on it. You can take a commercial integration complex device, whether it's a touch screen on a wall or a controller in an environment, and you can create variables on those things.
Yeah, and that's a very good example. No, we were speaking about how to monitor Samsung big screens or LG big screens, and through the means of a custom driver, you can really extract whatever information you want, like which HDMI is in use, or is the screen black or not. So it's very, very powerful. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Understanding the whole signal chain, right, from a network perspective in a digital signage application becomes very, very easy when it comes to these custom drivers, right? Understanding what the media player is doing, or the source to sync, right? That is all a very, very powerful tool. And if you as a service provider understand what's going on there and knowing what the display is doing, right? Wow. I mean, it's just powerful. Giancarlo, I did not show, and I want to show this. I think there are probably questions coming in. So if you can get those prepared. One of the things that I wanted to show just how easy it is, and I'll just do this with my house, is the connectivity. I mentioned that, but I never did anything with it. So let's just take this managed switch again, okay? Here's an example where we've scanned the network, and you can see that SSH, Telnet, port 80, right? Port 8080 all popped up, right, as valid management ports on this system. So command line interfaces as well as web connectivity ports. Couple things I'll show you here. One is if I want to create a connection to this, all I need to do is simply hit the Connect tab. What is happening right now is that my laptop is creating a secure connection with the cloud, and the cloud is creating another different secure connection with the agent that's on my home network in this case. And if I remember my password properly, I have to concentrate because it's such a long password. I should gain access into this, right? So now I'm remotely connected into this system, okay? So this happens to be a Netgear AV-centric switch, an M4250, right, that we have integrations with here. I want to point out that all of these connections that you may want to create to different systems, right, do not require, oh, this is probably a bad example. Let's go to find another device that may be more relevant here. I don't see any device that I really want to connect to that has a web page that's easy to use. This might be a good one. This is a rack link. This is a PDU that's out there. Okay, so we can likely come in and create another secure connection to this. I doubt I remember the password on this, but this is just another example where you have a device that we don't have specific drivers on, where we can likely create a secure connection into this. Okay, so it's taken a while. Actually, this device, I may have made a mistake because this device may be offline. It says it's online, but as you know, this is a live demo, so I don't know why it's going funky, but you can create these. It always happens, Giancarlo. There's always one. Always one.
Yeah, especially when I'm streaming on one side.
Yeah.
And connecting on the other, yeah.
But all that being said, I've gone over my 45 minutes, like I said. What questions do we have, Giancarlo, or what else do we need to address here?
So we have a few more questions here and there. In particular, I don't think we spoke about the integration or tools integration, because one of the questions we had is if Domotz provides an IT ticketing system or ticketing portal within Domotz itself. And the answer is not yet, which means we are hoping to have a portal where you can manage the tickets from Domotz itself within the end of this year. However, most of our customers are leveraging this integration that JB is showing, or part of the integration that JB is showing, with external ticketing system. We cover like 12 or 13, I don't remember, different ticketing systems. Moreover, we can also deliver tickets through the means of webhooks. So if you have your own ticketing system and it's a port receiving webhooks, you can basically use Domotz to inject the tickets in your ticketing system. But the most popular ones, Zendesk, Freshservice, Freshdesk, or ServiceNow, or even PSA platform like Autotask, Datto, or ConnectWise, or Kaseya, all of these, they are all listed here, and you can leverage them to have all the events that occur in Domotz listed in your ticketing system or PSA platform.
And Giancarlo, I would point out, under the Domotz, what I would say is nomenclature, right? We call these shared alerts. The reason we call them shared alerts is because if you come in here, when you configure an event, right? Or when you configure an alert based off of particular events, you can actually define multiple contact channels, right, for a given event that occurs. So in this case, right, we're sending not only a message over Slack, right, to a messaging system, which is using the web hooks that you talked about, but we also can create a ticket inside of your PSA tool, right, your ticketing system. It's also important to note, Giancarlo, that a lot of people ask about this, but Domotz has the ability to close a ticket as well if the event, right, goes away, right? So if you had a device go offline, it can raise a ticket, but then if it came back online, right, it could actually close it again.
Correct. That's a correct statement, JB. That's very important. Similarly, now if in the example we were providing before, the temperature of your rack room goes below 28 Fahrenheit degrees, which is cold, JP, you need to know it's cold. So it goes there, it opens the ticket, and then as soon as it goes above the threshold, it closes the ticket again. So yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And similarly, I mean, if you have a switch which creates a lot of traffic, it can create a ticket and automatically close the ticket if it goes below the threshold again. Or even you can decide to keep the ticket open. It's really up to you. It's flexible and up to you.
Yeah, amazing tools, and I love it. So what other, do we get another question, Giancarlo?
There are a few here and there. So speaking about ticketing system, I see the guys in the backend were going to answer. Is there any plan to support Ninja? I suppose Ninja One as a ticketing system. It's a good question. We have tried to contact Ninja product management team multiple times to work together and to allow Domotz to open tickets in Ninja. Let's put it that way. We have always been pushed back. Don't know the reason why. We work perfectly with Atera, Synchro, ConnectWise, Kaseya, IT Glue, all these other players in the MSP space, but Ninja is not giving access to the API. And the work is on us. I mean, we are very willing to do the work and opening ticketing on Ninja. It's completely on us, the work, but we need access to the platform.
Yeah, and this brings up a really good point, Giancarlo, which is, we may not have all of the integration and tools that you need, right? What we encourage you to do is email support@domotz.com. Tell us what your tool stack is, right? Talk to our onboarding and our sales team. So that way we can work together with you and that vendor to see how we can get better integrations. We're very open to that, and we're always excited by having those discussions, quite frankly.
I agree. No, I completely agree. And as I said before,